You're listening to Two Girls, One Crossword.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone slept well.
Yeah.
Sorry. We're in our morning podcast era now.
We really are.
We're recording in the morning because I'm the worst podcast co-host in the world, and I sprung it on Chelsea last minute. Be like, actually, can we record at a really inconvenient time on Saturday morning?
Usually, I am like game for it. And actually, this works perfectly fine for me. I'll get some editing done right after this. But, you know, I'd like hustle to get my research done. And she's like, let's change. And I'm like, you.
Like right after she finished.
It's fine because it's one of those things too where like you hustle to get your research done. And then it's like, oh, can we switch? And it's like, a breath of fresh air. Like, okay, I don't have to like rush this anymore. I can actually go back and reread my research. Did I go back and reread my research? No.
She had the option though. And that's what matters. That brings the comfort.
Thanks for joining us this morning. In case you somehow stumbled here and have no idea how you landed here, this is Two Girls, One Crossword, your favorite weekly Podword Crosscast, and I am Chelsea Rowan.
And I'm Grace Topinka.
Ooh, very, very great. Grace, I have to tell you, I had dreams last night about all the characters from the Quarry video game.
If you're new here, you may not know Chelsea and I love to play these choose your own adventure video games. Highly recommend. Even if you're not that into video games, it's kind of like a movie, but you get to choose what happens.
Exactly. We have some great recommendations too. They're really good.
They tend to be scary though, which Chelsea doesn't like, but me and our other friend force her to play it. So right now we're playing one about kids at a summer camp that's closed down.
Yes. And I had dreams all last night about these characters. And it wasn't like a scary dream. I was really nervous I was going to have like horror dreams all night because I tend to invoke, if I think about something, I will invoke that dream at night. I didn't have any horror dreams, but the dreams were so weird that I can't stop thinking about them. I'm like still coming out of the dreams. So if I start talking about
what actually happened and what didn't.
Yeah, so if I start talking about summer camp and you're like, Chelsea, where are you? I'm in my dreams.
All right, there we go.
So that's me.
I was up all night with stomach pains because I ate like Chelsea makes these amazing cookies and I had like 5 yesterday and like 4 the night before. My stomach's like, okay.
No,
because they're big too. They're not like little like
no
break and bake type of situations. These are hefty cookies. They're so good though.
Yeah, they're good for like they're the right size for like a big cookie at night, like for a snack or something, you know. But sometimes you overindulge. I woke up this morning feeling like crap because of how much. Because I only had half a cookie last night, but I
you only had
feel
half?
like but
I
ate
had like 4.
Almost all of the remaining bags of the Lay's chips and that French onion dip.
True, and the Doritos.
So I was going hard on something else, and I am paying for it. I'll tell you that right now. Anyway, welcome, listeners. Hello.
Should we get into our Pollapalooza? Because I finally remembered to do it. Although this morning I like woke up in a sweat. I'm like, wait, have I done this poll before?
You have not?
I?
No.
Because I was like, maybe I did it for the Edgar Allan Poe.
I don't think so.
But I didn't. I looked back. I'm like, wait, that one was kind of more recent. And I looked back through a lot of our polls and I didn't see it. So
yeah, no, you didn't. You didn't. Okay. At least, hey, I don't remember. So. Screw it.
And no one said anything. So no one cares. Okay, we posted on Twitter, who is your favorite American horror author? Stephen King, H.P. Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe, or Shirley Jackson? 50% voted for Stephen King. That's the number one.
Yeah.
In a close second with 37%, it's Shirley Jackson. 13% for Edgar Allan Poe. And then no one voted for H.P. Lovecraft.
I'm glad no one voted for H.P. Lovecraft. He's got some issues.
Yeah. I just needed like a 4th person to kind of round out the group.
As much as I don't like H.P. Lovecraft, some of my favorite board games are like the H.P. Lovecraft board games like Mansion of Madness or like Arkham Horror. So, they're so much fun. But, you know, the question, can you divorce the man from the art? No, but
that's the question we are going to answer on today's episode.
I would have picked Shirley Jackson or Edgar Allan Poe, bar marrying 13-year-old cousin thing. I would vote for Edgar Allan Poe because I've read almost all of his short stories. And my 8th grade English class was Edgar Allan Poe themed. Well, actually, we read Moby Dick in the first half of the year. In the second half of the year, we read all of the Edgar Allan Poe stuff. So I have like an unnecessary amount of information in my brain about Edgar Allan Poe short stories. I haven't read any Stephen King books except his On Writing, which is actually pretty good. And that's not a horror book. And I haven't read any Shirley Jackson, but I have seen some stuff based off of Shirley Jackson. So I'd have to go Edgar, and I'd have to go Shirley.
That's fair. Yeah, I feel like Stephen King, I like a lot of his movies, or books have been turned into movies. But I feel like I haven't read that many Stephen King books either. I mean, his books are kind of dense, you know?
That's what I've heard, yeah.
And so are Shirley Jackson's, but I feel like in a different way. His books can go on for a long time. Like, I've had It sitting on my bookshelf for years because I found it at a used bookstore. But like everything I've read online, it was like, this book took me like years to read. You're like plowing through these, you know, like super tedious details that don't really have anything to do with the plot. And also apparently he was doing like really heavy drugs at the time. He doesn't remember writing half of his like major books.
It's crazy.
So sometimes it's like, I don't know if I can really, I need someone to keep it tight for me, you know?
Yeah, keep it right, keep it tight.
I can't do like a drug-fueled...
Right, and like Shirley Jackson also on drugs. Edgar Allan Poe, alcoholic, we think?
Yes. Yeah, they were all doing something, so maybe that's
and
the secret.
H.P. Lovecraft, he was dealing with his racism at the time, so what can we do? What can we do? We don't make the rules on this podcast, we just...
live by them.
Yeah. I'm just living here. And that's me.
Next? Oh, yeah. That's just me.
And that's just me.
Heights and Shites already?
I think it's Heights and Shites. I think let's hop into it because I don't think I have like a longer topic this episode, but I always think that I have a short topic and then Grace goes and I'm like, oh my God, I went so long. So let's just get into Hitch and Shits. What do we say?
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. I feel like I think I only did New Yorker this weekend, like the USA Today.
I also did all the New Yorkers, and I did a couple New York Times, but I find myself shying away from the New York Times because the New Yorker is so good now that I feel like I'm potentially missing out on some good puzzles in the New York Times.
Well, there's also drama this past week.
There is, which we can't get into.
Because we barely know what's going on.
We're
not as like, you know, we don't know all these players, but I do like to read funny tweets about it.
The funny tweets are great. For just a quick rundown, there was a supposed debut puzzle by a woman constructor in the New York Times. Turns out it was constructed by a man who was not supposed to be submitting to the New York Times at all, but he kind of threw one over them. That's the gist of it. He submitted
under this name just to see if he could get through. Apparently there's a huge rivalry between him and Will Shortz. The missing puzzle piece for us is we don't know why he was like banned from submitting to the New York Times. I'm sure someone will now tell us, but...
Yes, exactly. We don't exactly know, but we did watch a lot of this drama unfold on Twitter, and it was interesting. It was fun to read the tweets.
Chris Dunkin' Donut sticker.
Right, or Paolo's tweets about Will playing the angriest game of ping pong. Like, that's all I need in life. They got me. If anybody wants to fill us in on the juicy details, please do. We just got all our information from tweets and Twitter threads, and that's it. And if you're curious, go on Twitter and search on the hashtag NYTX word or NYTXW hashtag, and you'll find some drama. Not that we're stirring the pot, of course. We would never stir the pot. That's not us. No. What we would do is we would go over our heights and our shites. So
nice.
Thank you.
Well, I'll start.
Let's do it.
If you don't mind. The USA Today not USA Today. Washington Post Sunday crossword August 7th, Breaking Character by Evan Bernholz. I liked the theme. There was basically a bunch of across clues that had circled letters in it, but it would be like one word, the last 4 letters of it would be circled, and there'd be a black square, and then another word next to it, and the first couple letters were circled.
Okay.
So, for example, 21 across was calm down, and then in parentheses, The Little Mermaid. And the answer was cool your jets, but jets was circled. And then the one right next to that was some vintage RCA products, and the answer was AM radios, and AM was circled. So if you, all the circled letters together were Jets AM or Jet Sam, which is a character from The Little Mermaid. So that was kind of the game.
Got it. Fun.
For example, 37 across, nickname for Yale University, in parentheses, Sense and Sensibility. The answer was Old Eli with Eli circled. And the one next to that was those led by William the Conqueror. The answer was Normans. Nor was circled. Eleanor is the character.
Amazing. Amazing.
But then, when you get to the revealer, it says 66 across. Literary character spelled out by the first letters of this puzzle's circled word. So Jets from Jet Sam, Eli from Eleanor, and it goes on like that. And it was Jekyll. And then the one next to that on the other side of the black square was 69 across, literary character spelled out by the last letters of this puzzled circle word.
Are you kidding me?
Word. So for AM radios, you have M. For Normans, you have N. Or sorry, you have R. That's the last one in Nor. Mr. Hyde.
Evan is a beast. He's a beast.
And then 65 across.
There's more.
This
more.
Doesn't do with the theme, but I love this. 65 across. Or first of all, when you open the puzzle to do it, it gives you like the little information blurb. It said note, the clue for 65 across contains a video. To play it, click on the play icon in the blue bar. For desktop solvers, that's the play icon above the grid. And then 65 across said, the annual Emmanuel seen in this video from Knucklebump's farm, e.g. And it was a video of, it was like it looks like a TikTok, but I've seen this on Reels. It's just like a girl who lives on a farm and she has a pet emu named Emmanuel. But the video is like, a funny video of him. But it's cool to have a video like in the puzzle.
That's amazing. And yeah, the TikTok is famous. That TikToker is famous with the emu.
Well, yes, but there's that other. I feel like I know Karen. Or I think that's her name.
Oh, maybe it's not an emu that the one on TikTok has. She has an ostrich or something. Anyway,
no,
what were you?
Hers is an emu. But
what were you saying?
That I would love a puzzle that's all like video TikTok.
Yes. Please pander to the chronically online. We would love that.
But I feel like that's kind of hard to do because it would get dated so quickly.
It would. But I feel like there's some things are meant for the here and now. I feel like if an indie constructor, Paolo,
that's very wise of you.
Thank you, would like to put it out on their indie blogs, we would for sure do it.
That's all mine from
that puzzle sounds amazing. If you are doing the Evan Bernholz Sunday puzzles on the Washington Post, I don't know what you're doing. What else is there to do on a Sunday?
Not much.
To be fair, I didn't do that one, but I should get back on the Evan train because Matt and I love those. But let me go to the Monday, August 8th New Yorker by Wina Lou. I liked this one, 14 across, wasted part of a weekend, maybe.
Boozy brunch. That's in my hits too.
It's so good. I also liked 24 across. This one tripped Matt and I up because we couldn't understand what word. Anyway, I'll read the clue. Means of collecting stock. And we couldn't figure out what definition of stock was being used here. And the answer was lasso, like cows.
I thought it was ladle.
I did think it was ladle. Yeah. Also 51 across, publication that ran from 1951 to 2021 and printed more than 200 million copies per year at its peak. The answer is IKEA catalog. Wow. If you're interested in IKEA, listen to episode 33, Multifunctional Lust. That was a good one. Grace talked about the 7 layers of hell, and I talked about the IKEA's winding road.
Kind of similar.
Yeah, exactly. And then sorry, my phone is cracked, so I'm like trying to read my notes. 3 down. Producers of some big hits. And the answer was bongs. Which is funny. I wouldn't say we used to be like scandalized, but almost when we would see like weed related clues in like the New York Times, just because the New York Times always comes across as more buttoned up. Yeah. This one was good too. 29 down. Periodic intensity. Heavy flow. God bless wine.
Sometimes you got a heavy flow.
Sometimes you do. Go ahead. What else you got? Did you have anything else on that puzzle?
Well, I liked a lot of your same ones. One you didn't mention was 54 across. Path that's risky to travel alone. The answer was the carpool lane. I feel like my mom told me of stories that people would like put a mannequin in their car so they could get in the carpool lane.
That's crazy.
I would never risk that because I'm terrified of breaking rules.
Well, yeah. Also, you're the only person that I could carpool with. We would never carpool. And even if we did carpool,
well, it's not
there's
like
no carpool lane between
not
where we live and
Drive.
There is I think there's some carpool stuff like on other places, but not where we drive. Anyway.
No, the places we're going. That's all I have from that puzzle.
Okay, well, I'll take us into the Tuesday, August 9th, New Yorker by Anna Schechtman. Just a couple from this. 23 across, some widely shared routines. The answer is TikTok dances. I feel like a couple weeks ago, I said that there was like a shit about how someone used TikTok. It was like someone used cat content as being like exclusively TikTok. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But this is the good way to clue TikTok things, I think. I think it seems it's on brand for TikTok. Anyway, so bravo, Anna. And then 30 across, meal for an inept cook. The answer is TV dinner. I have to say,
some people just want a TV dinner.
Some people just want a TV dinner. I am not an inept cook. And sometimes you gotta go frozen, baby. You gotta go frozen.
Yeah. I never liked TV dinners because I feel like, well, I only know like the lean cuisine, and it's like 3 pasta noodles, 1
piece of corn, a kernel of corn, and then they give you a dessert, which is like the worst tasting thing ever. I remember as a kid really loving or wanting to love those blue like kids cuisine TV dinners.
Oh, yeah, no.
They're horrible. But the commercials
look
were great.
Good though.
The commercials
they
were
look
great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
With the dinosaur nuggets.
Oh yeah.
I was definitely more of like Spaghetti-O type sitch.
Just
pour it in a pot and heat it up.
I hated Spaghetti-O. I was definitely more
they're
of
bad
like,
now. I tried them as an adult. I was like, this is horrible. It tastes like I'm eating like pasta sauce.
Well, to me, if the sauce is closer to ketchup than tomato sauce, then we're gonna have a problem.
That's fair. It's like, has it changed over time, or have my taste buds changed? Because as a kid, that was like, even in college, I would have the beef ravioli ones.
Maybe your taste buds have changed, because when I was a kid, I used to hate ramen. But now I love ramen. I don't know what to tell you.
Crazy. Well, guess we'll never know.
That's crazy. What else you got?
I did the August 10th New Yorker by Will Nediger.
This is a good one.
It was 17 across, contents of a library or an investment portfolio, holdings. 43 across, high-pitched cries of delight in modern slang, squeeze. It's just cute to see it in there. 63 across, in quotes, ... What if I told you I made the whole thing up? Question mark. Or is it? Was the answer.
So good.
And then you gave me a heads up that this was going to be in there. 2 down, circusy aesthetic that features polka dots and bright clashing colors. Clowncore.
I liked a TikTok that had a bunch of clowns in it recently. Did you see it?
No.
It's the "You're gay" TikTok.
Oh yes,
theme.
yes. I'm going through my clown era now. I just like clowns. I feel like they're like any vintage stuff with clowns on it, but that's the type of thing that you kind of have to rein yourself in a little bit, because otherwise you're really committing to everything clown, and I don't think my girlfriend's supportive, but not that supportive. So 36 across, what dirty people may draw. Oh no, wait. No. Sorry, that's the next puzzle. My last one from that puzzle was 53 down, they cross in this grid. And the answer is words, because I just like when crosswords mention that they're a crossword.
I agree. I also have some from that puzzle, too. I liked the opener, 1 across, quote, well, blank, end quote, mansplainer opening. And the answer is actually, it's like, that just goes up my spine to think about that. I also really liked 64 across, off kilter, cockeyed. What a great word.
I was thinking that. I was like, I should be using cockeyed more. Not that I use off kilter a lot, but
no, you just like you just say,
like,
oh, that's a little cockeyed. You know,
this table cockeyed.
Exactly.
Is that offensive? Well, is that? I don't know.
I don't think it is.
Is it? Well.
Oh, well, maybe it is. Oh, Christmas. Give us a break. We're trying here. Cross it here. We'll come back with more on that. We may see you next week on Corrections Quarter.
Yeah,
okay.
That's not anymore.
66 across, Little Caesars, question mark? Or Caesars, sorry, not seizures, sorry. Little Caesars, which I love that it's like a play on word with like Little Caesars. It's not spelled like Little Caesars, the pizza place. It's spelled like Little Caesars, Seizers. And the answer is tweezers, because they are, in fact, Little Caesars.
Tweezers are Caesars. And like, that should be a tagline for a tweezer company.
We're doing your marketing work for
Will
you.
Nediger is.
Yeah, well, yeah, we are. Yeah, well,
Get
Will
into
is.
copywriting, Will.
It's true. What are you doing to make your paycheck? What else you got? I have one more.
I have one more too. The Thursday, August 11th by Patrick Barry.
Do it.
Well, this is the one I accidentally dipped my toe into. 36 across, what dirty people may draw, question mark, and the answer was baths. Although I feel like if I'm really dirty, I have to shower first before getting in a bath. You know what I mean?
You got to be clean before you get in a bath because you're going to be sitting in water.
Yeah.
And that's going to be sluicing off of you. For me, a bath is like, I know some people do baths and like get clean in a bath and it's a good way to like save water. Bravo to you. But I take a bath to relax, not to clean. I'll shower and then bath. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's just
I'm the same way. I almost never take baths.
You and I like hot water.
I need
sit
a hot
in
tub.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I had a hot tub, people say you get a hot tub and you never use it. I really feel like I would use mine.
Yeah, I do too.
Especially if it was a saltwater hot tub and it made my skin good. Forget about it.
Well,
okay.
I'll get a house and I'll buy a hot tub and I'll just give you the key to the back gate.
I'll be there every morning, 6 a.m.
Oh, good morning, Grace.
Start the day. Get that circulation going. Okay, 56 across. Word that Tony the Tiger famously begins with a growl. The answer was great. I
Great.
thought that was a fun cluing for kind of a like more boring word. 37 down. Restaurant chain where chefs make onion volcanoes. Benihana.
Benihana.
Love to see that
Wait,
in there.
who isn't Steve Aoki like the son of the Benihana family?
I have no idea. I've never heard that. But
I'm pretty sure Steve and Devin Aoki are the children of the Benihana guy, but he has many wives.
Nepotism.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well,
Only
again,
because,
we may or may not.
A lot
be
of
back
famous
on
people are
Corrections
already
Quarter.
extremely rich.
Yes. No, I'm pretty sure though. I'm pretty sure.
I feel like we should go to Benihana.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to one where they throw something in your mouth?
Yes.
But have you been the one that they chose?
Yes.
Wow, I never have.
Well, I've
only been to like Benihana restaurant like probably twice in my life.
We used to do hibachi a lot in college, and the place we used to go to was amazing. And they would go around the table and do the sake in everybody's throat with the.
Wow.
But they wouldn't. I've never done anything where they like throw a shrimp to me or something, because I would have let that shit fall on the ground, not intentionally. But
I feel like a lot of it is the throwers. I mean, these people are so talented.
They are. They really are.
Like, yeah.
It might be
it
might be the thrower's responsibility, but I'd be like moving because I don't trust myself. Anyway,
we should go to one. And
I agree.
And see. Okay, then 48 down. Learn something new. Dental floss material, nylon. I didn't know that.
Yes,
I looked it up, and that is like what most dental floss is made out of.
Yeah, the clue came up, and I was like, you know what? I never thought about that, and I don't think I could pull from my brain what I even perceive that thread to be made of. And so then when it was nylon, I was like, the more you know.
Because sometimes it does fray.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
why I only use Glide mint floss. Normally, I'm like, I'll use whatever. I don't care about brands, but floss, I'm very particular.
I tried to go for an all-natural floss, and that stuff was just it was just fraying in my mouth. Yeah. And I'm like, I try to be as eco-friendly as possible, but with floss, I have to draw the fucking line. I'm sorry, because if you're flossing your teeth and getting more stuff in your teeth, it's not exactly what I was looking for.
What has this all been for?
What is this? I'm busting my ass to even get myself to floss my damn teeth. It's just got to work for me. Sometimes it's just got to work for me.
Yeah, can't fault you there. But that's all I have.
Okay, I just want to talk about the theme from the Tuesday, August 9th New York Times by Bruce Haight. Did you do the Tuesday New York Times?
No, I didn't do any New York Times.
Okay, so Grace and I, as you guys know, like puzzles that have like fun looking grids. So when I opened this puzzle, it looked like there was a football end post in the middle of the puzzle, you know, like a Y with like whatever. And so I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun. So the theme is David and Goliath, which it's about like the football post was actually representative of David's slingshot. Yes, exactly. So the themed answers, 17 across. One known for living large and getting stoned, ? Great clue. The answer was Goliath. And then that was at the top above the slingshot, then the slingshot, and then below the slingshot was 56 across, classic underdog, and the answer is David. And then there's 2 up and down clues, 20 down, biblical site for the battle depicted in this puzzle, and it was the Valley of Elah. And then 22 down, Hebrew Bible text with the story depicted in this puzzle, and it was Book of Samuel. I'm not usually one that's like, yes, religious topics, but I love when constructors have like fun images in their puzzles, and I thought they used the theme, they utilized the image and the theme well. So bravo, Bruce. Thanks for a little bit of fun on a Tuesday afternoon. I've always said
Goliath should be the name of like a cannabis dispensary. Be Goliath, and the tagline it would be "Get Stoned."
Oh,
I'm just full of good ideas, but I can't execute, so people do whatever you want.
Yeah. We can't execute, but at least sell us
I'm an
free
idea
weed sometimes.
Factory over here.
I love that for us. I love that for you. You're good. You're on. For 7 o'clock in the morning, you're quick as a whip. I've always said that.
It's 8:15, but yeah.
Oh.
Shall we flip the coin?
Let's flip the coin.
It feels like 7. I
Yeah,
can't believe this is how early we used to always record.
Bananas. All right, I'm flipping the coin now. Tails. Whoa.
Little me. Oh, the tides are really turning for old Grace, aren't they? My topic comes from the August 8th New Yorker by Wina Liu. 47 across. Network behind Grumpy Cat's worst Christmas ever.
Lifetime.
Lifetime.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Are you talking about Grumpy Cat or Lifetime?
Lifetime.
Okay, amazing.
About Lifetime movies, which you know that Chelsea and I are a fan of, although after doing this research, I feel like we're more into Hallmark movies.
Probably.
Because Hallmark has more feel-good movies. And they both do Christmas movies, but Hallmark has the mystery, Hallmark movie, A Mystery, and that's where the crossword mystery series is
was
on.
so much fun. Yeah.
So fun. Okay, but
remember when we
about
live
Lifetime.
watched the crossword movies?
Yes.
Oh my god, we should find another crossword movie and live watch.
Did 3 come out?
We should look this up.
I feel like the only 2 came out, and then we were waiting for a 3rd one, but then they like postponed it, and I don't know if it ever came out or people ever watched it or what. But
let's look into it because we live watched on Twitter. It was a lot of fun. So,
yeah. Okay, but most of my information came from 2 articles. One on BuzzFeed called "How Lifetime Became One of the Best Places in Hollywood for Women" by Laura Good, and another article on HuffPost, "Memories of Melodrama: The Unauthorized Lifetime Story" by Lauren Duca. So,
ooh, this is kind of related to your soap opera episode, right?
Yes, a lot of crossover, or not crossover,
Amazing.
but very, very similar to the story of soap operas.
You should listen to these episodes in conjunction then.
Mm-hmm. Just go between the 2.
Exactly.
All right. Lifetime Network. It emerged in the 80s, and it filled a very specific niche in the emerging world of cable, a channel for women by women. But it actually wasn't technically started by women, and that wasn't even its initial purpose. So it was officially created in February of 1984 with Thomas Burchell hired as the president and CEO, a man, if you couldn't tell from his name. Thomas came from radio, and he wanted to originally create a TV channel that was kind of like a radio show, so a bunch of talk shows and people would call in.
Okay.
But that didn't really translate as well over TV. So when that didn't work, Thomas had another idea. He was like, what about a channel for women? Now, of course, women were already watching TV. It's not like they were like, well,
we don't
TV
have
is
anything to
for
watch.
men. But there were already programs that were targeted to female audiences, like TV movies, talk shows, and soap operas.
Mm-hmm.
But there wasn't one dedicated channel. And in one of the articles I read, it was like, at first they were trying to figure out what to put on this channel. And it had to be like a conversation that there didn't need to be a separate like women's news, that women could just watch the news.
My God.
But Thomas brought in Patricia Philly-Crushell from HBO to help create the voice of the channel. In regards to forming the new Lifetime, Patricia said, quote, a women's network didn't just mean shows that had women. Yes, there was a female star, but she had to be complex. It was a lot about projecting what we felt as women, which sounds good. But Patricia had an enemy, kind of. Bill McCormick. He was the head of sales, and he was just like focused on selling ads. So he wanted to like, he just cared about ratings, basically.
Right.
And they're kind of differing visions of what Lifetime could be, like what kind of content they would have on there is captured perfectly in the 2 first original Lifetime movies. So the first one ever is a movie called Memories of Murder, which starred Nancy Allen as a wife and stepmom who hits her head, gets amnesia, and conveniently can't remember why a murderer wants to kill her family. Which sounds very like, you know, it's kind of like the blueprint of one of those Lifetime movies. It was received horribly by the critics. Everyone said it was horrible. But then they came out with a second movie around the same time called Wildflower. Now, Wildflower was a coming-of-age story about a partially deaf girl played by Patricia Arquette, who finds community with the help of a very earnest Reese Witherspoon, and it was directed by Diane Keaton. It was her directorial debut.
Amazing.
So, this movie was a little more serious. Patricia, not Arquette, Patricia Philly, said, quote, we had a rule about what makes a Lifetime movie. Originally, a Lifetime movie meant the woman couldn't be saved by a man at the end. But then Bill, her enemy, comes in and was like, yeah, we want to be uplifting women. That's great. But, quote, but if we want to have a show on that's not uplifting to women, but on the other hand, it's fun, you know, or a guilty pleasure, that's just lighthearted. So even though Memories of Murder was like panned critically because it was stupid, the ratings were much higher. Like people tuned in to watch that. And so Lifetime kind of was like, well, that's what's getting us more ratings. So we're going to make more stuff like that and not stuff like Wildflower.
Yeah. Well, that's typical.
Some rules of a Lifetime movie, according to jillcon.wordpress blog, is one, has to be a true story or something that might have happened to someone once and it was bad. Be a hot button issue, although this came in more later that they started really doing like social issues.
Right.
Had to have, you know, they love movies about teenagers who are making bad decisions. A title that explains the entire plot of the movie.
Right.
An underdeveloped subplot that never gets fleshed out or goes anywhere.
Okay.
No dads, which I haven't realized that, or I didn't notice that in Lifetime movies, but apparently there's no dads, just like how Mary-Kate and Ashley movies have no moms for some reason.
Oh, that's right. Weird.
And then like a completely unbelievable event that happens in the plot. Like, you know, she gets amnesia and doesn't remember anything.
Right.
Some movies that came out during this time, which are now classics. The 1994 movie Death of a Cheerleader, which stars Tori Spelling as a cheerleader who gets stabbed by the meek church-going nerd who idolizes her. Then the 1996 classic Mother, May I Sleep with Danger, also starring Tori Spelling, who falls in love with a charming sociopath.
Oh my God.
In 1996, A Face to Die For, where a woman goes to prison after helping her friend rob their boss. In prison, she gets plastic surgery to change her entire face. And when she's released, she runs into the guy who she went to prison for. And he doesn't know that it's her. And she falls in love with him.
Oh my God.
As the Washington Post says, quote, the more devastating the movie topic, the better for business. Teen deaths, bullying, murder, prostitution, nannies kidnapping babies. The horrifying but captivating plots became a running joke within the industry, but the viewers couldn't get enough. And it's true, during the 90s, Lifetime was booming. The New York Times wrote, quote, while audience growth has leveled off for other cable networks, Lifetime's primetime viewership has continued to increase. So they were like one of the only networks at the time actually
getting new,
still growing.
Yeah. I remember being in the 90s, like people, like young kids were like watching Lifetime, you know, like people I knew, girls that
Yeah.
I was friends with, were watching Lifetime because it was like, the drama, oh my God. I never got into Lifetime, though.
I watch some movies, but no, not as much as I am into like TV movies now. But it was huge, and actors were clamoring to get roles, and a lot of people that we know today got their start on Lifetime movies, like Kirsten Dunst. Well, she was already in Interview with a Vampire when she was like 10, and kissed, what's his face?
Brad Pitt.
For some reason.
Yeah, I tried to read that book. I don't care what anybody says. There's something fucked up going on there. People who love Anne Rice,
she's like internally like 30 or whatever, or much older. It's still strange. Probably could leave that out.
Yeah.
I have a lot of opinions like that about different plot points in movies, but
yeah.
Story for a different day. But I will mention that I don't know why they had to even make the Luke and Leia like romantic plot, and they kissed.
My God.
We know they're it just makes no sense, like why they had to add that in. But
I know.
Moving on. Okay, so Kirsten Dunst, she was in 15 and Pregnant. That was like one of her first roles when she was older.
Amazing.
Kristen Bell was in Gracie's Choice.
Oh.
And Zac Efron was in Miracle Run.
Amazing.
Candace Cameron Bure tried to move forward from her DJ Tanner persona in Full House, and she starred a movie with Fred Savage, who was fresh from The Wonder Years, and the movie was called No One Would Tell, a cautionary tale about an abusive teen relationship turned deadly. And according to this article, this is still shown in health classes.
Oh my God.
The Lifetime Movie Network launched in 1998, and in 1999, they finally hired their first female CEO, Carol Black. So Carol started to change. This was like a new era in Lifetime movies. They started to prioritize social relevance over just like these kind of women in danger plots.
Sure.
So at this time, they started also creating original scripted female-driven TV series like Strong Medicine, Any Day Now, and The Division, all featuring career-driven protagonists balancing personal and professional concerns. And this, again, landed well. By 2002, Lifetime was the top-rated channel on cable.
Amazing.
In the late 2000s, they started making more serious movies like Homeless to Harvard, The Liz Murray Story in 2003. In 2004, they made Speak, a story about teenage rape based on a book by Laurie Hulse and starring Kristen Stewart. I didn't realize it was a Lifetime movie.
I didn't either.
In 2006, A Girl Like Me, the Gwen Araujo story, which is a story about Gwen Araujo, who's a trans girl. So that was, that was in 2006. So they were already, and even other movies too. They did a lot of like LGBTQ stuff.
Yeah.
They even got an Emmy nomination in 2006 for Why I Wore Lipstick to My Mastectomy, a movie based on writer and activist Geraldine Lucas's memoir about surviving breast cancer. So it kind of shows that like are movies that wouldn't be made otherwise because it's too much specifically about women. In 2007, Army Wives debuted, which is the series about Army Wives, and the first season amassed more female viewers than Mad Men, which was the biggest show at the time. And at first I was like, okay, Army Wives, sounds like army propaganda to me. But the New York Times article says this about the show, quote, "At the heart of the show is a deep skepticism about the psychological impact of military culture on family life, a distaste for the brand of masculinity it breeds. The show never allows you to think that what you really want is a man in uniform," which is interesting.
Extremely interesting. And it's so, we talked about this in the soap opera episode, but so much of like Lifetime, Hallmark, soap operas get shit on for being like not good content, whether it be movies or television. And I just want to leave you with the fact that, you know, women have unique interests. And sometimes if you like dive into those unique interests, you make good content. Like the Army Wives thing, it's interesting to think that there's like a criticism of that.
Of the military in it. Yeah.
Exactly. Anyway.
And then they started doing more biopics and true crime things like the Amanda Knox murder on trial in Italy, The Pregnancy Pact. In 2009, they were acquired by A&E Television with a mission to become more mainstream. So in 2012, they remade Steel Magnolias with an all-black cast starring Queen Latifah, and this movie got amazing reviews. It was their third highest-rated movie in network history. It received an Emmy, SAG, and Critics' Choice Award nomination, 7 NAACP Image Award nomination, and 2 wins. So
they're making good stuff.
Yeah, and it that was like the turning and when they were making more like high quality. Because a lot of the issues with the other movies is like, yeah, they're just some of like, especially the original ones, they were just kind of like churning them out. But also like very low budget. That's why they're not like as good in quotes.
Right.
So that was like the third highest rated movie in network history. The first one was the Fantasia Barrino story, which is Fantasia from American Idol, and she starred in it herself.
Ah.
But basically after, you know, the success of that and Steel Magnolias with an all-black cast, Lifetime started focusing more on films that had stories about Black women, like Betty and Coretta in 2013, starring Angela Bassett and Mary J. Blige. The Gabby Douglas story in 2014. Aaliyah, the Princess of R&B in 2014. Toni Braxton, Unbreak My Heart in 2016. And Whitney in 2015, which was Angela Bassett's directorial debut.
Ah.
So
I've heard of all of these too, because I feel like sometimes people are like, oh, I've never seen any Lifetime movies. I've never seen any Lifetime movies, but I've heard of all of these films you're talking about. So
this is all in their effort to like start focusing on making less amount of movies, but higher quality. So they don't really make like the women in danger movies anymore that much, at least from what I could tell. Other ones, Anna Nicole with American Psycho director Mary Herron, and Lizzie Borden Took an Axe starring Christina Ricci. They're also getting bigger actors and directors to come in for them. And they've also started making more serious TV shows. So a big turning point for Lifetime in their path to being taken seriously was Unreal, which I actually watched. A show about a Bachelor show producer, written by someone who was a producer on The Bachelor.
I remember
it's really
this.
well done. Has got amazing critical reception. It won a bunch of awards, and it was also directed, written by, and starring women.
Amazing.
Also You, the famous, like now it's super famous on Netflix with Penn Badgley, was originally a Lifetime series.
The more you know.
The more you know. Liz Gately, Lifetime's head of programming, said, quote, "Look at our top 5 movies of last year. The top 5 were all directed by women. If you look at Unreal, arguably our most important scripted series ever, it's created by women and starring women. From 1994 to 2016, 73% of Lifetime's movies were directed or written by women, in contrast to around the 6% of major films being directed by women." Melanie Atkinhead, the director of the Mother, May I Sleep with Danger, remember that Tori Spelling movie in the 90s? They remade it.
Starring who? Anybody good?
I forget someone famous is in it, and Tori Spelling is in it too, but not in her original role.
All right, we'll have to look it up.
But the director of that movie said, quote, "For the first time in my career, I was working on a set and nobody was being treated differently. I seriously called my friends and said, I worked on a movie and none of that stuff that happens on that blog, shit people say to women directors, happened to me."
Wow.
Allison Anders, who got an Emmy nod for directing the June Carter Cash biopic, Ring on Fire, said, quote, "Oh my God, it's like a salvation. I can't even tell you how often, and it's not just me, any women director will have had years of this experience, where you go in and you meet on something and they love all your ideas and then they hire some guy to do it. With Lifetime, it's so great." So they're moving away from kind of what you may typically think of as Lifetime movies. And into this more like just really focused on finding women talent and getting higher budgets and making, you know, more serious films.
That's amazing. One of the reasons I left the film industry was because of the sexism. I had 2 really horrible on-set experiences with like a director of photography that was double my age, and it like ruined the film industry for me. Just like, anyway, just to say how toxic it can be.
But I also think we can't just turn up our noses on what Lifetime used to be and used to be known for. I'm going to end with a quote from Rob Shernow, who's Lifetime's EVP and general manager. He said, quote, "Lifetime pioneered so many genres that ended up taking over television. The medical drama, we had that 20 years ago. The female cop drama, we had that back when no one was programming cable dramas. But there's an incredible unfair bias about what Lifetime is overall. This bias jaundices people's view of what we do. There are certain projects that I think if you slapped someone else's brand on it, the reception would have been completely different."
And ain't that the truth? Great topic. Again, listen to her soap opera episode as well. They're related. It's amazing.
I think it's hard because like a lot of the I think a big reason why people don't take these shows seriously is just because they're really low budget, so they look bad, but they don't have budget because people are like, well, who cares about making stuff like centered towards women?
Exactly.
Even if the stories are compelling, they're just like not executed that well. But it's because they didn't have the funds. I mean, Entourage is so stupid. Okay, I don't know if this will upset people. But
Let's-
like
hot
Entourage
take,
is
hot take.
stupid, but it just has a high budget, and they were able to get like all these, you know,
Yeah.
famous
It's an
actors to be
HBO
in
circle
it.
jerk. Yeah.
Yeah. But
But no, I'm totally with you. If women topics or, you know, whatever topics that are catered towards women got more money put behind them, like think about like how many awards these Emmy films can win, or sorry, these Lifetime films can win, like the Steel Magnolias with the black cast, for instance. Anyway,
yeah, so
the topics do well.
Mm-hmm. You know, I don't think my dad doesn't listen to this, but this is like just a funny side note. My dad, who's like totally, he doesn't even like movies that much, but he's just like regular dad, you know, college professor. He loves Lifetime and Hallmark movies, but he like always changes the channel when we come in. I'm like, I know what you were watching. And they have like a smart TV that when you like hit guide, it has like top most visited channels on the bottom, and it's always Lifetime and Hallmark like in the top section.
We should not judge. Everybody loves a little bit of spice sometimes. And I think
sometimes it's nice to have the really formulaic movies like go on in the background because you can like kind of follow, but you don't have to be like
exactly
following too closely.
Exactly. And we're humans. We all like a little bit of spice sometimes, especially if it's not in our own life. You know, you want to see it unfold through somebody else so you can just be like, oh my God.
Some of these 90s ones I kind of want to watch, like Death of a Cheerleader.
Yeah, hello. We have so many movies we can watch, we will watch, and when we do watch, we will come back. But we don't have the
time.
We don't have
the time. We need to
time.
just like take a month-long vacation where we just like catch up on movies and TV shows we need to see.
A little sabbatical.
Yeah.
All right. Great topic. My topic comes from the Tuesday, August 9th New Yorker by Anna Schechtman. 38 across. Hagen, who was on the Hollywood blacklist. And the answer is Uta. U-T-A. So I will talk about Uta Hagen at the end, but I'm mostly talking about the Hollywood blacklist today.
Ooh, we both kind of have like similar-ish, I mean, in the same realm topics.
Yes, the entertainment industry. So are you familiar with the Hollywood blacklist?
I mean, just in general that, you know, Katherine Heigl was put on there and then she didn't get any work for years.
Well, we're going to talk about the original Hollywood blacklist.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the Hollywood blacklist is a list of media workers ineligible for employment due to being alleged communists or having some sort of communist connection.
Oh, so this is like Cold War era.
Cold War. Well, post-World War II, pre-Cold War. Yes. Okay. So this blacklist was created by Hollywood studios in the 40s and 50s and involved the practice of denying employment to entertainment professionals believed to be or have been communists or communist sympathizers, or even professionals who refused to assist in congressional investigations into the Communist Party activities at the time. Okay. So it wasn't just actors, but there were actors targeted. It was screenwriters, directors, musicians, and many other American entertainment professionals. Okay. The Hollywood blacklist was most strictly enforced in the late 40s through to the late 50s. That being said, the blacklist was not an explicit, public, or easily verifiable list. It was essentially a result of numerous individual decisions made by the studios, but it still quickly and directly damaged or ended the careers and incomes of scores of individuals working in the film industry.
Okay.
So to understand why we had a Hollywood blacklist, we have to look at the anti-communist frenzy of post-World War II America. So first to note, in the 30s and the 40s, there were two major film industry strikes, which increased tensions between Hollywood producers and the unions, okay? One strike was in 1941. Walt Disney actually took out an ad in Variety declaring his belief that, quote, communist agitation, end quote, was behind a cartoonist and animator strike that year. The cartooners and animators were like, no, you're just a fucking dick. And then in 1945, there was a Screenwriters Guild strike, and Billy Wilkerson, the founder of the Hollywood Reporter, believed that the Screenwriters Guild was filled with communism and often wrote fiery editorials railing against both communism and the Screenwriters Guild. And we're going to come back to Billy, so you wait. In the late 30s, the Communist Party of the USA was under the scrutiny of the House of Un-American Activities Committee, which we're going to talk about the House of Un-American Activities Committee quite a bit. So, the House of Un-American Activities Committee released a report in 1938 claiming that communism was pervasive in Hollywood. 2 years later, the HUAC took a testimony of a former Communist Party member, John L. Leach, who named 42 movie industry professionals as communists. Some names you might be familiar with that were on this list that came from this testimony are Humphrey Bogart, James Cagney, Katharine Hepburn, Melvin Douglas, and Frederick March, and there were others as well. Mm-hmm. The House of Un-American Activities Committee said that they would clear all of those who cooperated with them by meeting with them and talking and potentially even naming more names, okay? So eventually the House of Un-American Activities cleared everyone except an actor named Lionel Stander, who was then fired by his movie studio, Republic Pictures, where he was under contract because he would not cooperate with the House of Un-American Activities. So he lost his job as an actor forever.
Why don't they have the same energy when it comes to like pedophiles?
Oh, yeah, because Hollywood is run by a ring of pedophiles. Like other, yeah. It's
bad people.
Yeah. Anyway. Well, we'll get to that. Mm-hmm. So the United States then went to war against the Axis, in World War II. They formed an alliance with the Soviet Union, and then interest in the Communist Party of the United States rose. So during World War II, membership to CPUSA, so Communist Party USA, reached a peak of 50,000 members. That's huge. But as World War II came to a close, communism once again became the focus of American fears and hatred. The anti-communist fervor was fueled by the growth of the Conservative Party and the conservative politics of the 40s and 50s, and in the 1946 triumph of the Republican Party when they took both control of the House and the Senate. This led to a major revival of institutional anti-communist activity, specifically through the House of Un-American Activities Committee. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if you were in American history at some point in high school and you learned about the House of Un-American Activities Committee or McCarthyism, we're talking about that era of time in the 40s and 50s when everyone was like, there was all the Red Scares going around. They would call people in front of this committee and grill them. Like, are you currently or have you ever been associated with the Communist Party of America? Like they ask you crazy things like that and then put you in jail, essentially. A lot of fun. A lot of fun to be had. So let's get back. So that's kind of like the setup, post World War II, everyone's like freaked out about communism. The House of Un-American Activities is like conducting these investigations into various private and public sectors. But that brings us back to Hollywood. We're going to talk about Billy Wilkerson, the founder of The Hollywood Reporter. If you're in the entertainment industry or, I don't know, you look at the news at all, The Hollywood Reporter is still a massive like trade publication for Hollywood and movies today. So Billy Wilkerson founded The Hollywood Reporter right before the Great Depression, right before the 30s. So much information I'm about to give you comes from an incredible article called on The Hollywood Reporter, titled The Hollywood Reporter, After 65 Years, Addresses Role in Blacklist by Gary Baum and Daniel Miller. This was published in 2012. So remember how I mentioned Billy was like all up in arms about how many communists were in the Screenwriters Guild? Mm-hmm. Well, in 1947, Wilkerson decided that his fiery anti-communist editorials weren't enough, but he needed guidance, okay? He went to confession at his church, the Blessed Sacrament, a Roman Catholic church in Hollywood. In confession, he spoke to Father Cornelius J. McCoy. Quote, "Father, I'm launching a campaign, and it's going to cause a lot of hurt, but they are, antipathetic to my faith. They are my natural enemies, and I just need to know what to do. Father, I'm having misgivings about doing this campaign." He had an idea about how he was going to get rid of all the fucking communists, okay? Mm-hmm. And so Wilkerson waited for an answer. All across Tinseltown, livelihoods and lives hung in the balance. "Get those bastards, Billy," McCoy replied. Okay, so that's all he needed. So, beginning in July of 1947, Wilkerson published a trade view column called A Vote for Joe Stalin. In this column, he publicly named communist sympathizers Dalton Trumbo, Maurice Raff, Lester Cole, Howard Koch, Howard Buchman, John Wexley, Ring Lardner, Harold Salemson, Henry Myers, Theodore Strauss, and John Howard Lawson. Wilkerson wrote, quote, This is not an issue that concerns merely a few hundred writers. It concerns millions of readers who must depend on the free trade of ideas. It concerns still more millions of children who can't read yet, but who are born with the right to hope for a free world. Ultimately, 8 of the 11 names that he put in this column would be blacklisted. He continued publishing this column and continued publishing names of numerous communist and communist sympathizers for the years to come. And it became known as Billy's List or Billy's Blacklist. Thanks to Wilkerson, in 1947, the House of Un-American Activities Committee subpoenaed a number of people working in the Hollywood film industry to testify at hearings, right? With the goal of investigating whether communist agents and sympathizers had been planting propaganda in American films. So that was their goal. They were like, there's communists in Hollywood, and the communists are putting propaganda in our films. And since they're putting propaganda in our films, all of the Americans are going to become communists, and then the whole country is going to become communist, and the private sector is going to collapse. The rich people that are making money are going to not be making money anymore. They're worried about the rich people. So the hearings started with appearances from Walt Disney and Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan at the time was the president of the Screen Actors Guild. So Disney testified that the threat of communists in the film industry was a serious one and named specific people who had worked for him as probable communists.
Wow.
Reagan testified that a small clique within his union were using, quote, communist-like tactics in attempting to steer union policy. Others, like Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall, John Huston, Judy Garland, and Danny Kaye, organized a left-leaning Committee for the First Amendment to protest the government's targeting of the film industry. Bogey and Bacall even flew to Washington to stand up for their colleagues, though ultimately there was no change in what the committee was doing. We actually talked about Bogey and Bacall on this podcast. So it's nice to see that even though Bogey was called before the House of Un-American Activities in the first round and was cleared, when all of his friends started getting in trouble, him and Bacall flew and were like, yo, this is fucked up. It didn't do anything, but
it's a thought that counts.
It's a thought that counts. Okay, so of the individuals that were subpoenaed in 1947, 10 refused to testify, and they became known as the Hollywood 10. Their names were Alva Bessie, Herbert Bieberman, Lester Cole, Edward Dimtrick, Ring Lardner, John Howard Lawson, Albert Maltz, Samuel Ornitz, Adrian Scott, and Dalton Trumbo. They were a combination of producers, directors, and screenwriters who refused to answer questions regarding their possible communist affiliations. During the investigation hearings, members of the House of Un-American Activities Committee grilled the witnesses about their past and present associations with the Communist Party. The Hollywood 10 not only refused to cooperate with the investigation, but denounced the House of Un-American Activities anti-communist hearings as an outrageous violation of their civil rights, as the First Amendment of the United States gave them the right to belong to any political organization they chose. I'm not on trial here, declared screenwriter Lawson. This committee is on trial. They didn't care. As a result of not cooperating, the Hollywood 10 were voted in contempt of Congress on November 25th, 1947, and convicted in court the following year. Each were given a sentence between 6 months to 1 year in prison and required to pay $1,000. They all began serving their sentences in 1950. I will note that while in prison, one member of the 10, Edward Dimtrick, decided to cooperate with the government, and in 1951, he testified at a House of Un-American Activities Committee hearing and provided names of more than 20 industry colleagues he claimed were communists, and he was able to get work again after this.
Okay.
The others were not. So the Hollywood 10 were voted in contempt of Congress on November 25th, 1947. The same day, which would be 75 years ago this November, studio chiefs and the head of the Motion Pictures Association of America, so the MPAA, gathered at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York. Now known as the Waldorf Statement, it was a 2-page document. So they released a 2-page document released by the MPAA on behalf of 48 movie execs decreeing that the 10 Hollywood men who'd been cited for contempt by the House of Representatives would not be allowed to work in the business until each, quote, purged himself of contempt and declares under oath that he is not a communist, end quote. And so here's a quote from that Hollywood Reporter article. in the weeks and months after the release of the Waldorf Statement, The Hollywood Reporter continued to cover the, quote, commie issue nearly every day. Soon, several other blacklists were created. Red Channels, a pamphlet published by an anti-communist right-wing journal called Counterattack, included 151 names when it was released in June of 1950. The American Legion, a conservative veterans group, distributed a list of more than 100 people to the studios in 1949, and the House of Un-American Activities Committee also put out annual reports that included rosters of alleged communists. So, what I find crazy about all of this is that it's not just people on these people that were named on these lists were blacklisted and could not find work at all. Okay. But there's also a thing called the gray list. So if you were associated with any of these people, you were gray listed.
Nice.
Yeah. So it could be like your assistant, your agent, your driver, whatever. Gray listed. But also, it wasn't just people on these lists. If there was a rumor going around that so-and-so might be a communist, the studio execs would be like, I'm just going to take my chances here and just cut them. I'm not going to hire them. So, thousands of people lost their jobs. I'm going to talk about some prominent Hollywood folks that were blacklisted. I'm going to start with Uta Hagen, who was the clue. Mm-hmm. She was a German-American actress and theater practitioner. She actually originated the role of Martha from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf in a 1962 Broadway premiere. It's believed that Hagen was blacklisted due to her association with Paul Robeson. And I can't get into Paul Robeson too much because his life is so interesting and there's so much about him online. But I'll give you a quick little rundown about who Paul Robeson was. He was an American bass baritone concert artist. He was a film actor, professional football player, etc. He had an incredible life. But to simplify, because of his political activism, he got blacklisted. In 1956, Robeson was called before the House of Un-American Activities Committee after he refused to sign an affidavit confirming that he was not a communist. In his testimony, he invoked the Fifth Amendment. And he refused to reveal his political affiliations, as you are allowed to do in America, right? Mm-hmm. When asked why he had not remained in the Soviet Union because of his political identity, he replied, quote, "Because my father was a slave and my people died to build the United States, and I'm going to stay here and have a part of it just like you, and no fascist-minded people will drive me from it," end quote. He also said at the hearing, quote, "Whether I am or not a communist is irrelevant. The question is whether American citizens, regardless of their political beliefs or sympathies, may enjoy their constitutional rights," end quote. Mm-hmm. And so Uta Hagen was close with Paul Robeson. She got blacklisted. Mm-hmm. Because she was blacklisted, her film opportunities dwindled and she focused on her career in New York theater instead and later became a highly influential acting teacher at New York's Herbert Berghof Studio. And fast forward, she was elected to the American Theater Hall of Fame in 1981, and she twice won the Tony for Best Actress in a Play, and she received a special Tony Award for Lifetime Achievement in 1999. So, yes, while her career in Hollywood was kind of destroyed in the 40s and 50s, she eventually made her way to the New York theater scene, and she did pretty well. I'm going to talk about Lena Horne now. So Lena Horne was a prominent star in the 40s and one of the first Black stars on stage and screen. So regardless of her star status, she ran up against institutional racism. Because of this, she joined a variety of activist groups, okay? Mm-hmm. Many of which were populated by political radicals and communists. So she wasn't a communist herself. She was just doing activism. And in these same groups were people on the left and some communists. Mm-hmm. So because even though she wasn't a party member, she was found guilty by association and blacklisted after her name appeared in red channels in 1950. So unable to work in television or film, she spent the next few years touring as a nightclub and cabaret singer. She fought to clear her name by publicly repudiating communism and undertaking a letter-writing campaign to prominent journalists and entertainment figures. Eventually, her plan worked, and her reputation was rehabilitated, and by the late 50s, she was once again appearing on television variety shows and recording hit records. So despite her brush with the blacklist, she remained a political activist and later took part in the civil rights protests during the 60s. And there's a really great article on The Atlantic about Lena Horne and the Blacklist, which we will also share in the episode description. So I'm going to share the original, the Hollywood Reporter article and this Lena Horne article in the episode description. So that's Lena Horne. And then I wanted to talk about Dalton Trumbo. Dalton Trumbo was one of the members of the Hollywood 10. So the 10 men that actually went to prison. Most people that were called before the House of Un-American Activities Committee, this is where it gets really dicey. Like, if they didn't cooperate, they were sent to jail, right? If they cooperated, that meant that they started naming names.
Yeah.
And sending their friends in front of the committee and getting their friends, like their friends would lose their jobs. And it was like a really dicey, scary time because you didn't know who you could trust. Somebody that you thought you could trust was selling your name to the House of Un-American Activities Committee. And so like you had to be super, super careful. So Dalton Trumbo, he was one of the original Hollywood 10. So following his release from prison, he was forced to write under pseudonyms and sell his scripts on the black market. So he couldn't get work. He secretly penned several classic screenplays during the 50s, including Gun Crazy and The Brave One, and his work even won 2 Academy Awards, neither of which he was able to collect. Trumbo finally broke free of the blacklist in the 60s after Otto Preminger and actor Kirk Douglas announced that he would receive writing credits for the film Exodus and Spartacus. So he wrote Exodus and Spartacus, but at the time that they were released, it was under a pen name. And then the director and the lead actor were like, F this, it was Dalton Trumbo, he's amazing. He later resumed his career in Hollywood, but it wasn't until 2011 that the Writers Guild of America finally credited him with the Oscar-winning script for the 1953 Roman holiday. So some of these are big players, and like it's just such a shame that 3 of his most famous scripts were initially released under pseudonym. And many of his scripts won Oscars, but he wasn't able to get them because he was blacklisted. And he was one of the lucky ones, though. Like, most people who were blacklisted didn't ever work in Hollywood ever again, which is really sad. I'm going to end on a quote from the Hollywood Reporter. Quote, "The impact of the blacklist era was significant. The purge of hundreds drained Hollywood of talent, but more significantly robbed people of their livelihoods. In total, at least 300 people were formally named to various public lists, including Red Channel's and House of Un-American Activities Committee's own official tallies, and many more, from spouses to siblings and secretaries, similarly found themselves crippled by their gray listing. Whether through whisper campaigns or unofficial outings in publications like The Hollywood Reporter, ultimately thousands would be affected. Many who could no longer find jobs got out of the business. Not everyone was able to work under pseudonyms, an impossibility for actors, or with fronts, the non-blacklisted whose clean names were used in place of the damned." So like that's usually what scriptwriters would do. Still others, like Barsman, were forced to flee to Europe, in part to search for employment in the film industry. Hunt, a rising star in the late 40s, lost her contract at MGM and could barely find a gig in the 50s. "Word got to the studios that I might be one," she says. "I was no longer workable. Only a handful of those blacklisted are still alive, and those who remain are in their 80s and 90s. The last of the Hollywood 10, screenwriter Ring Lardner, died in 2000. End quote. The article about Billy Wilkerson on the Hollywood Reporter is amazing. It'll be linked in the episode description. I wish I could have talked about that for the whole thing, but I wanted to talk about Dalton and Uta and all that stuff. It was published in 2012, and it was essentially the first time the Hollywood Reporter had acknowledged their role in the blacklist from the 40s and 50s. It was the Hollywood Reporter that basically got the House of Un-American Activities involved in Hollywood, and that's why thousands of people lost their jobs. Because at the time, Billy Wilkerson was insane and posting all these blacklist things in his publication. He was friends with Howard Hughes, and Howard Hughes would feed him names of possible communists. Howard Hughes was also friends with J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI at the time, who also became friends with Billy Wilkerson and started feeding him names of communists to post in his publication as well. People were like, well, why did Billy Wilkerson do this? Why was he so anti-communist? Some say it was because he was Catholic, and communism is like borders along atheism, you know, and he was like very like a devout Catholic. You know, he went to his priest to get the okay to do this. The same year that the Hollywood Reporter shared this article, Billy Wilkerson's son wrote a formal apology and shared it in the Hollywood Reporter and said in the apology, like, oops, my bad, my dad was crazy, but this is why he did it. And he said that his father did it to get revenge on the studio executives because he wanted to set up his own studio, and they made it impossible for him to set up his own studio. And so he was getting his revenge on them.
That makes the most sense.
Yeah. So, and in the Hollywood Reporter article about Billy Wilkerson, they talk with some of the surviving members of the Blacklist. This was published in 2012, so some might not be alive anymore. But there was one guy who was a script reader who got fired because his name showed up in like Red Channel or something. And then he somehow, there was like a sympathetic agent who gave him a job in his office. Billy Wilkerson found out, called and screamed at him about how if you don't fire him, I'm going to publish all these blind items and you and your company are going to be gone forever. And so he got fired.
Wow.
Just like crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Anyway. Yeah, that's the Blacklist.
Well, interesting. Different than the Blacklist I was thinking of. I was thinking of the contemporary Blacklist where it's like if you're deemed difficult, quote unquote.
Yes. There are, unofficial blacklists still in Hollywood. There's the one I think most people are familiar with is the one like the Harvey Weinstein blacklist. He would blacklist you if you wouldn't sleep with him. That's like a very real thing. And there are other types of blacklists, nothing formal and nothing that's, I think, anti-communist in Hollywood
nothing
right now.
That has a committee for the Un-American or whatever.
Yeah. The House of Un-American Activities Committee. That's just like scary
That sounds like
sounding.
that could be a band name.
Yeah. And it also sounds like something you would find in like a fascist country.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Alrighty. Well, what a way to start the day.
Yeah. Seriously.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yes. We always appreciate knowing when we wake up early on a Saturday morning to record for you that this is going to go to your ears one day.
Your ears and end with a smile on your face, hopefully. If you want to talk to us, you can find us on Twitter at The Good Eve Girls.
Or Instagram at The Good Evening Girls.
Or TikTok at The Good Eve Girls.
Come on down. We'll be around. And until next time, listeners, please keep curious, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.